When you think of the best Lord of the Rings video games, what's the first thing that pops in your head? Maybe Shadow of Mordor, or one of those two movie games that were both surprisingly good beat-em-ups. Battle for Middle-earth 2 is a pretty good RTS, some might say awesome even, and some people even still love Lord of the Rings Online. I mean, still getting expansions. The last one came out in 2023. It's a lot to pick from, but one game that never got the attention it deserved was the forgotten EA-published Lord of the Rings game, 2009's Conquest. You know how the classic Star Wars Battlefront games were awesome? Well, this is that, but Lord of the Rings. Seriously, I bet a lot of you have never heard of this game, or you just totally forgot about it, but it was published by EA and even made by Pandemic Studios, the guys who made those first two classic Battlefront games. And in everything but name, it is a follow-up to Battlefront. I cannot overstate just how overlooked this game was. A big part of it is that it came out at the wrong time. 2009's a little late to jump on the Lord of the Rings train. The original movies had long been out of theaters. Hobbit wasn't going to happen for another few years, 2012. And this is pretty much when EA was grasping at straws for what to do with the license. A weird era for the series. They put out stuff like Aragorn's Quest and Guardians of Middle-earth, which was a MOBA. Conquest holds up way better than those games, though. You wouldn't know it from looking at the reviews. It's got an average score of 55 from Metacritic. Reviewers were not kind to the game, and I will tell you, it's far from perfect. But there is a lot to like about it. It's got that pandemic charm. And I don't mean the COVID one, I mean the Pandemic Studios charm. Really, the biggest issue with the game when it came out was that there really wasn't enough people playing it. The multiplayer is pretty much dead on arrival, which sucks because it was a multiplayer-focused game. Even getting the game these days is pretty difficult. It's not on Steam or GOG. So the only way you can play it legally these days is to have it on CD or play it on consoles. That's the weird thing with licensed games like this. They tend to fall through the cracks even when they come from a major publisher like EA. If they lose the license, they just stop selling the games, and that makes them pretty much abandonware. You can't buy them anywhere. Really the only way to get games like this is through the secondhand market, or, yo-ho, running the old skull and bones up the mast. In this case, it's justifiable, though, because you can't play the game any other way. So even though we've got a Lord of the Rings game made by EA and Pandemic, based on one of the most popular movie series of all time, featuring the voice of Hugo Weaving, who played Elrond in the movies, the game is essentially forgotten. When little indie games get lost in the time hole, it makes sense. The audience for those games is often not big, but it's just so weird when a big budget major game like this just disappears to time. Some fans have tried to bring the game back, though. There's a small but somewhat active mod community trying to keep this game alive. Back in 2022, a demo for a reimagined version of the game came out for Unreal Engine 5. It was visually impressive for a trailer, but the demo wasn't all that well received and hasn't been updated in years, so it's likely that's dead. So if you really want to play the game, you gotta find the original. There's probably something more to talk about here, but let's just get back to the game for now. It's kind of a cross between Battlefront and Dynasty Warriors. You got 4 different classes to pick from, regardless of if you're playing with the forces of good or evil. There's warriors, archers, scouts, and wizards, all with their own strengths and weaknesses, and they play basically how you would expect. Warriors are the frontline fighters, archers shoot at stuff from far away, scouts are fast but weak and can use stealth, and wizards are capable of support. And I don't mean emotional support, they throw fireballs, generate shields, and heal teammates. Although they could be capable of emotional support, I don't really know. Multiplayer is the focus, but if you're like me, you mostly play at the campaign co-op. And they're about what you would expect for a game like this. They're a series of multiplayer maps strung together in sequence, depicting major battles from the films. You start at Helm's Deep, you end at the Gates of Mordor. You're mostly completing objectives like area defense or eliminating certain enemies. Mostly common stuff, though sometimes you get to do something more fun like control an ogre or an ent or that kind of crap. There's also mounts to mix things up, and they're fun additions. Good guys use horses, bad guys ride wargs. They don't change the game or anything, but they do make certain maps a lot more interesting. One of the best things about the campaign is that you unlock a new evil campaign called The Rise of Sauron after completing the first one. It tells an alternate story where the forces of evil manage to corrupt Frodo. It's fun enough getting to play as the orcs, but what makes this so much fun is that all the maps are new and they take place in other locations from the movie series like Rivendell and the Shire. It's my favorite part of the game, easily. Running roughshod at the bad guys is fun as hell, and it's nice to see a Lord of the Rings game where the maps aren't all just the same stuff in the movies. I mean, I'm not complaining when you have Helm's Deep and Palantir Fields, but if you play enough Lord of the Rings games, it does start to get, old to go through the same stuff. Here's the Helm's Deep level. The Conquest mode of the campaign is what most people played, but there were also modes like Team Deathmatch, Capture the Flag, Ring. Because let's be serious, what are you going to do with a flag in the Lord of the Rings? There's also Hero Team Deathmatch, which is very goofy, but very fun. Yes, there are hero units in the game, just like the original Star Wars Battlefront games, and like those games, you randomly get chosen to play as a certain hero in the middle of a map, and these guys can clear house. They're way stronger than a regular class character. They mostly play the same. They're still vulnerable to getting ganged up and ganked, just like anybody else. I will say, the hero selection is a little odd. The forces are good. They make sense. You got Aragorn, Frodo, Gimli, Legolas, and Gandalf, Doi. That all checks out, but the evil side is unique. So Saruman makes sense. Witch King, good pick. And sure, Lurtz works. He's that one orc from Fellowship that turned Boromir into a pincushion. And then things get weird. The Mouth of Sauron? All right. The guy that only appeared in the extended cut and all he did was talk and get his head cut off. Sure, whatever. And last but certainly not least is, I kid you not, Wormtongue. The guy whose entire character is that he's a sniveling little coward and is never shown to have any combat ability whatsoever. Guess they needed a scout hero for the bad guy side. But I say, I just dip into the Harry Potter bad guys. That would actually be less weird. It would cause more licensing to be necessary, though, so Wormtongue it is. So hey, the hero deathmatch mode. 3 Frodos wailing on the Witch King. Fun for a laugh, not the main attraction. Weird.
You have not won! The enemy gains upon us! Now displeased.
This is my hour. Your friend shall watch you die.
I shall die here for Rivendell!
Smash them.
But yeah, ultimately, Conquest is a game that's more than the sum of its parts. Any one part of the game on its own isn't that great. The combat's pretty simple. The classes basically play all the same at the end of the day. Objectives are repetitive. But there's just something undeniably fun about engaging all these classic moments in battles in Lord of the Rings, kind of like Battlefront. Maybe you gotta be a super fan to appreciate it, or at least someone who likes Star Wars Battlefront, but there's just a lot to like here. But yeah, ultimately, Conquest is a game that's more than the sum of its parts. Any one part of the game on its own isn't that great. The combat's pretty simple. The classes basically play all the same at the end of the day. Objectives are repetitive. But there's just something undeniably fun about engaging all these classic moments in battles in Lord of the Rings, kind of like Battlefront. Maybe you gotta be a super fan to appreciate it, or at least someone who likes Star Wars Battlefront, but there's just a lot to like here. Coming back to it now, one thing that's really refreshing is how simple it is. There's no battle pass, no microtransactions, or loot boxes, or really any unlocks at all. There's a grand total of 2 things to unlock in this game: the Rise of Sauron campaign and the legendary difficulty, and that's it. No costumes, no emotes, no nothing. It's just all there. Well, I guess there were some DLC maps, but they're unavailable on the PC version, and both the Xbox 360 store and PS3 store are no longer operational, so it's just not something a lot of people have access to anymore. And I don't think the community is big enough to figure out some way to rip the maps out of those versions and implant them into the PC version. At least maybe all it takes is really one guy who really wants to do it and knows how to do it. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I will say, as much as people complain about modern multiplayer game schemes, I guess, those paid map packs the games of this generation used to have, they really did suck. It made the player base more fragmented, and it did not add value to the games, really. That's the thing about the 7th generation I am glad is dead and buried. But, I mean, there are other ways Conquest feels very old school. And I don't just mean the lack of progression systems. Has no loadouts of any kind. Every level, you just pick your class and that's it. Each class looks different depending on the level you're in, but otherwise they're functionally identical. It's one of the things reviews from 2009 complained about, but I actually think makes it an enjoyable game to pick up and play. It's barely balanced. Wizards are clearly the best class in the game. There's almost nothing you can do if a group of players decides to gang up on you with wizards. But that's kind of part of the dumb fun. Sure, wizards can heal themselves for free and create a shield and toss fireballs, and they gotta be wearing what's easily the most comfortable garment in the game. Seriously, you don't know what's under that cloak. It could be nothing but the wind. Way more comfy than all that restrictive armor, right? Like wearing a bathrobe to a battle. And let's be honest, it doesn't even matter how unbalanced the wizards are. Everyone just gets steamrolled by hero units anyway. Balance was the least of the game's problems, though. I distinctly remember the online servers being very bad when the game was out, often literally unplayable, and by the time it became playable, there was nobody left to play with. The absence of bots in multiplayer modes was a real problem. Sure, you could play with bots if you really wanted to, but it was all or nothing. If you wanted to play online or with friends, you weren't playing with bots. If you wanted a multiplayer map filled up with players, you had to play single player, and then the maps would be full of bots, and the bots were really stupid. Because it was 2009. That's no man's land for AI. You know, you can go back a little ways, and NPC AI is way better. You go forward a little ways, NPC AI is way better. It's right in that sweet spot where they were just like, who even cares about AI? If only they could see 2024, right? It's all anybody can talk about, AI. Granted, it's not NPC AI that we're talking about, but still. At least you could play the campaigns co-op, and that's mostly what I ended up doing. It's a game without a whole lot to it, but I can't help but feel a certain nostalgia for it, even if I really wasn't that crazy about it back in the day. It's definitely a game I've come to appreciate more as time goes on. Sort of a little odd side game that you just don't see from big companies like EA anymore. It's kind of a breath of fresh air to come back to after all these years. No, it is not the most mechanically complex experience out there, not even the most polished. Honestly, it's a game that really needed a player base to thrive and never got one. With a few more patches and improvements, probably could have been the true successor to Battlefront that people wanted, but as it is, it's a fun little curio from EA's past. It's a game that is almost more interesting because of how unknown it is to the general audience, but it seems like over the years, there are people giving it a second look. If you can find it, it is worth checking out, especially if you can play it on consoles with a friend, or if you're savvy enough to host your own private servers for the game and play it online. Because there was real potential here. I'm going to be real, it was not as good as Star Wars Battlefront 1 or 2, the originals. Those games are all-time classics. It's not, but it's way better than its reputation would have you believe. And hey, if you do play it on PC, it pretty much works right out of the box. At least that's how it went for me. I didn't have to tweak anything. Lord of the Rings Conquest is a game with a lot of negatives, but honestly, it was great. Who really cares about the negatives? It's just a fun hack and slash multiplayer chill out game, and viewed under that lens, it holds up pretty damn well. It is not the complete experience. You can't connect to EA servers anymore, but I don't want to act like the complete experience back in the day was so great. The servers, when they were working, were not great. They were bad, so it doesn't really matter. This has just kind of been a nostalgic little look back at a game I hadn't thought about in a while. I think I hadn't thought about it in over a decade, actually. So what do you think? Did you play this one back in the day? Did you like it? Hate it? Are you indifferent? Is this the first time you're hearing of it? Ever? Are you like, there was a Battlefront for Lord of the Rings? That's weird. Let me know in the comments. And if you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.